Hi, everyone. I opened it up just a little bit early today to get us all settled in, get started. We're going to be starting in just a few minutes. If you can hear us, if you can hear me, go ahead and put something in the chat for me. Let me know. Things might be a little choppy on my end, but they are going to be great on Natawa's because he's plugged directly into the internet, which is the best way to get internet when you're trying to broadcast something. Good morning, Shauna. Shauna joins us every single time. We love it. She's our super fan.
Perfect.
For folks who are just joining us, I want to let you know that Amarant has a golf fundraiser coming up. You can go to amarant.com and a little pop-up window will tell you more about our golfing fundraiser that we've got going on. Yanira, good afternoon. Yanira's in Atlanta. Natawa wanted to name this presentation "Don't Do It," but I said, let's call it Slips and Trips, How to Prevent Injuries. You better don't. We'll get started in just a minute. Like I said, if you can hear us, go ahead and type in the chat. We'd love to see who's here. During the webinar, feel free to type your questions. Natawa can see them, and he might be able to answer them as he's presenting. Yay, Shauna can hear us. Great. That's 50% of having a successful webinar. If folks can hear us. Morning, April. Thanks for joining us. Like I said, if you've just joined us, we are getting started in just a moment. All right. Well, it's definitely about that time, so I'm going to go ahead and get us started. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today. My name is Monica Brain. I'm with Amarant Critical Infrastructure. At ACI, we work alongside tribal nations to support critical projects that strengthen communities, from infrastructure planning to broadband deployment, funding strategy, and long-term sustainability. Our goal is to provide practical, culturally informed support that helps tribes build, protect, and maintain essential services for their folks. And if your tribe could use some help with either project management or grant writing, call up Amarant and ask for Monica or Felix. Today's session is especially important. In recognition of National Brain Injury Awareness Month, we're focusing on one of the most common and most preventable causes of workplace brain injuries: slips, trips, and falls. We're seeing a steady increase in fall-related claims, many of which are preventable. Often these incidents come down to unsafe ladder use, overlooked hazards, or decisions made in the moment that could have been avoided with the right awareness and planning. With that, I'm honored to introduce our speaker today, Natua Garcia. Natua is a risk control consultant and an enrolled member of the Santa Ana Pueblo. He brings valuable experience working with tribal organizations to identify risks, improve safety practices, and build stronger, safer workplaces. And if I could just add a little personal note, Natua just recently welcomed a new baby boy into his family. So congratulations on that, Natua. And I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you, Monica. Yep. Baby boy was born on Valentine's Day. So we had a little Valentine's blessing there. So that's pretty cool. Pretty excited. So thank you guys. Appreciate your time. We'll jump right into it. Today's topic is going to be falls and ladders, slips and trips, how to prevent injuries on the job. We're going to take a look at, our workers' comp losses, how that kind of stacks up to the national level, kind of see the differences and some similarities there. So here we go. First, we'll start with some facts. Facts about workplace slips and trips. Among the leading causes of workplace injuries, the Bureau of Labor Statistics reports well over 480,000 non-fatal injuries per year that required days off from work. Think about that, pretty high. It's the highest injury frequency of any regulated activity. In 2024, 48,000 people died in falls at home and at work. In 2024, 844 workers died in falls. That's 17% of all workplace deaths. 145 workers were killed in falls on the same level. So it doesn't necessarily mean, when I'm getting up and down a ladder or when I'm on top of a scaffolding or I'm a high building. 145 workers were killed in falls on the same level. More than 8.8 million people were treated in emergency rooms for fall-related injuries in 2023. So maybe you were among those statistics, right? Were you in the hospital in 2023 for a fall-related injury? It's happening. Maybe it's more use. Maybe it's more work around the home. Maybe it's lack of training where we're starting to get a little complacent with these workplace, falls, especially from ladders. And we take a little overview of the trouble work comp claims from 2022 to 2023. Our total incurred, this is all causes of loss, was $21,847,336.14 in tribal workers comp program. As you can see on the far left, slip, trips, and falls continue to be a leading cause of loss. 13% of total incurred come from slip, trips, and falls. Pretty alarming when we look at it, just because, slip, trips, and falls could be eliminated easily with, good workplace, good housekeeping, good policies and procedures. But, we tend to see those claims. And another thing we'll talk about really quick that kind of alarming to me, you would think we would have a steady increase of losses around the holidays. But as you can see here, it's distributed pretty evenly throughout the months with the total incurred, right? I was expecting to see a lot more slip, trips, and claim falls, around Thanksgiving, Christmas, Halloween, especially with the amount of decorations, maybe some in the winter time with, ice, snow being a problem, rain, but it's evenly distributed throughout the year. So OSHA's help. Occupational Safety and Health Admin recognizes that slip, trips, and fall hazards are common in the workplace and are addressed in the walking working surfaces for slip, trips, and falls. And we could take a look at our general industry guidelines in 1910, subpart D, walking working surfaces. And, in that subpart there, OSHA's help, it kind of gives us guidelines and requirements to look for, having a clean work environment, having our work areas free from obstructions, debris, dust, just a good solid building point to where your organization's slip, trips, and falls, walking working surfaces, where that should be implemented in your program, the level. So if you aren't sure, where do we start? Where do we begin? It's just a quick little reference, 1910, that's general industry for OSHA, subpart D, and it'll break it down. And the cool thing about it is we don't have to lug around the big, heavy, general industry 1910 guideline book. We could just Google it and it'll break us down to that exact subpart. So it makes it a little bit easier for studying and understanding. Recognize hazards of slip, trips, and falls. So the main hazard that we see a lot of is cluttered, disorderly work areas, right? Maybe we take a look into a cubicle, maybe we take a look into an office, but mainly in the maintenance warehouse, right? In the warehouse, we always see some kind of clutter, really hard to navigate through, improper storage of tools, materials, and equipment. Why might this be a hazard? Let's say we're wearing improper footwear, or we're a clerical employee needing clarification on an order. We run into the maintenance warehouse and we step on a nail, or we run into a drill bit. Those are sharp, right? If they're improperly stored and we have the improper footwear, guess what? That's a recipe for disaster. Spills and items left on the floor. Once again, and this all goes back to the golden rules that we were probably taught our entire life. If you spill it, clean it up. If you open it, close it, right? So all those golden rules that we learned, they're also coming into play now when we talk about housekeeping in the office. When we talk about extension cords, conduits, cables, and hoses across the walkways, we want to make sure they're not across, high trafficked areas, kind of along the walls. Lower drawers, are they left open? Let's make it a habit to close them. Loose and unsecured floor mats, carpets, and covering. Think about our offices. Are there any places where there's some loose carpets, some uneven tiles, some damaged flooring, stairs and ramps with loose or missing handrails? Okay, even loose and missing steps. How many of us maybe have not on our work, but maybe a neighbor or someone in the community where they have some steps that are missing in their stairs to get up to their trailer, right? Unprotected edges, sides, holes, and dock boards, and inadequate lighting. How many of us have been in an emergency situation where the power has gone out and our emergency lights don't work? Okay, inadequate lighting. We need to get that fixed. Real simple fix. A $20 fix could go a long way, as opposed to someone getting disabled, falling hard enough, creating permanent disability there, right? Some more hazards of slips, trips, and falls: improper footwear, the use of non-walkways, especially with the improper footwear, right? Wearing high heels or baseball cleats on the iciest day of the year, the use of non-walkways, jumping over fences, saying, I'm going to cut that corner and I'm going to go across on the dirt. Let's say it's snowing. What could possibly happen in that non-walkway? There could be a gopher hole. The snow could give out. We could slip. There's a lot of risk there that are causing more dangers. Using unsafe things to reach. How many of us have said, I could just stand on my chair really quick to reach this light to turn it off, or to fix this light to turn it on? No, we don't want to do that. The easiest thing to do is get the ladder, set it up properly, climb up, make sure we maintain 3 points of contact, fix whatever you are trying to reach, and come back down. How many times have we seen and heard, or maybe this happened to ourselves, where we've stood on the chair, lost our balance, fallen, dislocated shoulder, broken our arm, broken our collarbone, using unsafe things to reach. We don't want to do that. Horseplay and not paying attention, another no. Carrying items that obstruct the view. Most of us get paid by the hour. So, let's take our time. Let's carry loads that we can see over. Let's carry loads that we can handle, carry properly. Rushing to complete work. How many of us have gotten in an injury or hurt ourselves because we're rushing to complete the work? Running from one area to the other, or maybe even on a personal note, getting hurt cooking dinner because we're rushing to complete it right. Getting a little complacent, getting super fast with the knife. And that happens. And ultimately, no fall protection. Saying, I don't need to wear this harness. It's not that big of a deal. I've done this 100 times. Oh, I don't need to tie on while I'm on the roof. I've done it 100 times. Well, guess what? It's just 5 degrees colder today. and that roof is slippery now, and there's a little film of ice on there, and we slip, and there's no way of protecting ourselves now. So it's happening. Temperatures are changing, conditions are changing, um, our environments are changing. Eliminate slip, trips, and falls. Like always, put things away. Keep walkways clear. Walk slowly. Clean spills or block the area. Something simple as using a sign, using a mat. Um, the only thing I will tell you with the mats is we have to make sure that we do everything leading up to putting the mat down. So if part of our plan is cleaning up the floors, mopping up an area, especially where there might be grease in that area, we put a mat on top of it. Well, what's going to happen? Water, grease, that doesn't mix. You put a mat on top, it's just going to become slick, right? There's been claims where people have broken their knees, because, oh, well, I have a mat here in the dishwashing station, but we're not doing any preventative maintenance there. So eventually that oil film built and the person changed directions, broke her knee. Okay, wear non-skid shoes and proper footwear. I'm a big one. I'm a big stickler on wearing the proper footwear. There's so many injuries happen because of improper footwear, especially in the food service industry. We have to wear the proper footwear. Hey dudes, Crocs, not really proper footwear there, right? We need to make sure we have something that will support our feet, support our long hours, give us a little protective covering over our toes. We do not want to clutter the stairs or emergency exits. In the event of, an alarm going off, an evacuation, we cannot use an elevator. We have to use the stairs. And if, the stairs were an additional storage area, well, we're out of luck at that point. So we're not going to clutter the stairs. We're not going to clutter those emergency exits. Avoid walking, talking, or texting. I know a lot of us say, oh, well, I could walk and talk, text all day long. But even if we do have, an AirPod in, think about that. Our mind is somewhere else. Our mind is on the conversation. We run into someone, we miss that ledge, we miss the curb, we misjudge the curb, right? Slip, trips, and falls right there. It's always happened. Our brains aren't meant to multitask. We just have that false sense of hope that we can multitask. But, think about the last time, you might have tripped, you might have slipped. It was probably something simple that we walk past every single day, right? Said, what was I doing differently today that made me misjudge that step? Oh, well, I was talking. I was heated up. I was in an argument. So avoid walking, talking, or texting. Here in the office at Amarant, we put up mirrors at blind corners to kind of eliminate a little bit of that hazard. But it only works if you take a look at the mirror, you look up, you're paying attention. So once again, avoid walking and talking or texting. Inspect work areas and eliminate slip, trip, and fall hazards. The big thing right there, slippery, uneven surfaces. Take a look, changing in the levels and changing in the types of surfaces, carpet to tile, concrete to gravel or mud. Does that also affect the type of shoe you're wearing? Last time I went to a casino, I was wearing cowboy boots, walking through the carpet okay. But as soon as I hit that freshly polished tile, that's when I slipped. So, those changing in surfaces really makes a difference. Changing in levels such as flat to sloped or flat to steps, different parking lots. Parking lots are a little bit tricky because sometimes there's a little bit of a lip above the first pad. And so there's changes right there as soon as, you step down onto the parking lot surface off the curb. Surface protrusions or depressions such as thresholds, cover plates, and gratings, all areas that kind of affect the way the walking surfaces. Take a look, right? Just be aware. Train employees to recognize and avoid slip, trips, and fall hazards on the job. The big thing here, we have to know the policy, recognize the importance, understand the duties, know how to perform those duties, follow the schedules, and take responsibility. But the two big things I'm going to harp on right now are understanding the duties and knowing how to perform the duties. Oftentimes, especially if it's first day on the job, I don't know if it's, just being a little bit nervous, being a little bit afraid, wanting to, show that, hey, I can handle this. Oftentimes people forget or want to ask for help, right, on knowing how to perform those duties specifically. And so that's where we kind of get a little bit complacent there, where people say, I'm not sure I know how to do this right, but I'll still do it, you know. So my big thing is understand your duties, know how to perform your duties, and ask. It never hurts to ask. Report and investigate slip, trip, and fall incidents. Report lighting problems like I talked about. Report incidents and injuries. Encourage following the doctor's orders. And fix problems before the incident. Especially, if we have a slim workforce or skeleton crew, we still have to encourage following the doctor's orders. I know many times it's just our human nature to want to get back to work as soon as possible, right? It's okay. It's okay. I have this little bit of a lingering issue, but I think it's just because I'm sore or I'm out of work shape. It'll be okay. No, we have, as employers, as managers, we have to encourage following the doctor's orders. That's the most important thing. We don't want to create and make that injury worse. Numbers don't lie. Accidents do happen, right? The wrong ladder was used. The ladder was in poor condition. The ladder wasn't used properly. Take time to select the right ladder. So now we're moving into ladder safety. We could take a look at our meme here. Has this happened? Have we ever, tried to do the buddy pool, lift it up because we didn't want to go get a little bigger ladder, a longer ladder, right? Make sure it's in good condition. Use it the way it was intended for, right? And we'll get into more details there, especially when we talk about ladder safety. Ladder accidents and fatalities are one of the most common accidents that happen on the job. Select and inspect the ladder before each use. Set up ladders correctly and properly. Climb and work on ladders safely. And so when we do take a look at the initial inspection of that ladder, we want to make sure that the height matters. We want to make sure we're choosing the right ladder. Never step on the top 2 rungs of a step ladder or the top 4 rungs of an extension ladder. Okay. And look at the capacity. There's a weight limit, right? And they're usually on the side. There's a little sticker tag on the side. We have a little picture here showing you kind of what that tag looks like, what information's on there, right? It gives us the capacity. This one's rated at 300 pounds. It's 4 feet. Never use a metal ladder around power lines. Okay. And the cool thing is we have fiberglass options, wooden options, there's a whole lot, and slowly having to do the home maintenance myself now, I'm realizing how expensive ladders are. So ladder inspection before we climb, but we take a look at this ladder. Are the steps in good repair? Metal ladders, are they slip resistant? Is there some kind of rivets built in? Steps and rungs, are they level? The side rails, is there no cracks on them? Metal parts, are they lubricated? There's a rope, is it not worn? Are the spreaders secure? Sometimes, especially on the spreaders, that's where we see them going missing, or there's one missing, or there's one hanging down. Are the spreaders secure? Are there any sharp edges, right? Maybe that piece of metal started to bend a little bit. There's a sharp edge there. Take it out of service. No coatings on wooden ladders. The safety feet solid and in place. We have a picture of the safety feet. What do they look like, right? Do we have to add a little rock at the bottom of it to make it even? If we answered yes, hey, guess what? It's not secure. It's not level. Make sure our metal ladders are dent free. Another thing I'll tell you guys, chances are if there is a ladder in the dumpster, there's a dent, there's a crack, there's something wrong, right? So there's a reason it's out of service. So we're not going to go dumpster diving, jumping in there saying, oh, well, it looks pretty good, I could use it at my house. No, it was in the dumpster for a reason. We're going to leave it there. And that leads me to my next slide, right? Don't use defective ladders. Even under a deadline, don't use an unsafe ladder. Set aside and mark as out of service. Do the right thing and be safe. And like I said, right, ladders are expensive. Ladders are expensive, pretty penny, but we cannot use them. What's more important, your life or $200 for a ladder? Probably our life, right? 100% our life. So do not use, no matter how much trouble we'll be in, no matter if we have to extend the deadline, we're not going to want to climb on a defective ladder. Okay, set it up correctly. Stability is a big thing. Number one, place the ladder on a firm level surface and check to make sure the ladder is stable. Never set up a ladder on top of another object to gain more height. Okay, so so we see it's set up there on a pallet. We're not going to do that. We see the feet there uneven, not stable. So we're not going to do that, right? We're going to set it up correctly. When we use the extension, use a taller ladder and extension ladder designed for two ladder coupling. If we need to get way up there, doorways. If using a ladder near doorways, secure to prevent accidental movement, or use cones or temporary barriers to keep traffic away. Right. Make sure that people know, hey, I'm right here by this door. Strength, never lean a ladder against a surface that can't support your weight. So we see here in the top picture the guy supporting a ladder against a window. Huge no there. And stationary, never move, shift, or extend the ladder while you or another worker is on it. If you need to move or adjust the ladder, we'll always climb down to do so. I know, there's bad habits. So we see them on TikTok, OSHA violations, where people be walking with the ladder, walking with the ladder, walking with the ladder. We don't want to do that. Okay. We want to climb down the ladder, adjust it there, make sure everything's stable and secure, climb back on. We don't want to walk with the ladder. All right. When we talk about steps to climbing, big one, take your time. We talked about it all day. We have to take our time. Most times there's an injury or an accident happens is when we're rushing, rushing to complete a job task, rushing because we're late. Well, we could drop this back down into driving, right? Speeding because we're late. So take your time. We want to wear clean, dry shoes. Every time we take a step, we're going to go one at a time. We're not going to skip any. We're going to face the ladder. We make sure we climb not too high. Stay alert and focused, and maintain 3 points of contact. And then we have some do's and don'ts here of ladder safety. We're not going to lean. We don't want to lean. We don't want to reach far overhead. We don't want to reposition the ladder while we're on it. But we do want to keep 3 points of contact. We do want to keep our body centered. And we do want to move carefully. All right. And that's the big thing, because a lot of times people have this kind of perception of, oh, well, if I get down, I'm wasting so much time. Or if I do this, I'm wasting so much time. Think about it. Just 20 seconds, just 30 seconds really, really affect the outcome of your day? Probably not, right? Probably not. So, but that injury, that fall from more than your standing height, that fall from off the ladder, that will affect your day a lot more so than that 20 seconds of doing it right, correct? And so, tell you guys a little bit of the first aid steps to take. A coworker falls from more than their standing height. What are the first aid steps to take, right? So the big thing we're going to do, ask a responsive victim what happened. If he or she has any risk factors, explain the need to hold the head still to restrict spinal movement. With an unresponsive victim, check for risk factors for suspected spinal injury. We want to hold the victim's head and neck with both hands in the position found to restrict movement of the neck and spine. Assess the victim breathing and be ready to give CPR if needed. We're going to have someone call 911, reassure a conscious victim and tell him or her not to move, and continue to stabilize the head and spine and monitor the victim's breathing until help arrives. So the big thing there, if we see someone fall from more than their standing height, we suspect a spinal injury, back injury, hip injury, we're going to leave that person in the position found. Okay. Our big goal is to provide reassurance, call 911, because if the person's unresponsive and not breathing normally, we start CPR. Okay. We start CPR. So, but our main goal there is to make sure that the victim doesn't move. We keep them in the position found, hold the head and neck and spine, to restrict that spinal movement, but provide the reassurance if possible, put a little warm blanket, clothing on the victim, try to keep that temperature stable, 98.5. But we're never going to pick up the person or try to move them unless we need to get them in position for life saving care. Okay. And then when we talk about ladder storage, we want to store ladders securely, store short step ladders vertically and straight ladders flat on the racks, store ladders in a temperature controlled area. We just don't want to leave them out there in the sun. Think about if we have fiberglass ladders, things like that, in the New Mexico sun, what is that going to do? It is going to beat it up pretty bad, kind of make the integrity of that piece of equipment falter a little bit. So just some key points to remember. Ladder accidents can cause serious injuries or even death. Most ladder accidents are preventable by taking safety measures. Always use the right ladder for the job and inspect it before each use. Set up ladders correctly and climb them safely. Okay. Like I said, short, sweet, to the point today. Thank you. I appreciate your time. We're probably going to talk about slip, trips, and falls again, but especially when we talk about ladder safety, right? Just take the extra minute. Take the extra minute. And Monica, if you see a ladder in the dumpster, it is probably broken. There's something wrong, all right? So we're not going to try to salvage it, okay?
That was my favorite part of your presentation because I have been known to, there's perfectly good free things in the dumpster, but for example, if there's an electrical strip, maybe you come across 30 of them in the dumpster, that means they're all defective and they're not for you.
Yep.
Anybody in the comments, if you've got a question about safety, brain injury, anything like that, go ahead and put it in right now. While Natwa and I are wrapping up, we'd love to hear any questions that you have. So, Natwa, you said that a lot of these things are preventable. Is there other circumstances where, injuries really aren't preventable in terms of it, maybe like an act of God or something like that?
Well, I'm trying to think of like an act of God or things that could be preventable, right? Because let's say there's a lightning storm or thunderstorm in the area and you get caught up on a roof. Well, hey, should be some good risk practices taken. Say, hey, there's potential of the lightning storm coming. Do I have enough time to get up, complete my job safely, and get down? If the answer is maybe, well, we'll err on the side of caution. And
Right.
I have to put myself in that situation too, because 21-year-old Knott was a very dangerous guy. Didn't think of the consequences, but now with arthritis and things like that, I should have taken a little bit more a little safety effort there. But no, to say no, there's always a way to prevent the injury. And
What do you,
oftentimes,
what, yeah, yeah. What advice do you have for someone who sees something before it's about to happen and, wants to bring it up, but they're maybe afraid that their boss or whoever's in charge is, not is going to be like, oh, why are you causing problems or things like that?
yeah, of course. But I would always have to be the safety advocate. Because think about it. If you're the one person on your team, there's probably 3, 4 others that didn't want to speak up because, oh, I didn't want to be that guy. But that guy is going to save your community. It's going to save your friends. It's going to save your life. And oftentimes, once you show the example, and actually give them that hard piece of evidence of like, look, there's a crack in the metal or there's a crack in the wood. And if you take a half a step, you can see it, bow or bend. And oftentimes, sadly, that's what it takes, right? It takes someone to cause a big commotion. It takes someone to cause a big stink just so as they could finally take it serious. And I'm happy for those people who do, because without them, everybody would be hurt. we would have a really dangerous work environment. So I'm first one to tell you guys, stand up, because there's probably someone that was too scared, to even say anything. And that's the sad part about it, right? Oh, well, I don't want to ruin how things were done this whole time. Well, no, it's time to, because guess what? There's safety measures put in place now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Nato, thank you so much again for this. And folks, we are going to have another webinar next month. It's will be someone from our underwriting department will be sharing some information with us. And I also wanted to let you know that we are going to try a new platform moving forward. I think we're going to YouTube, but stay tuned. I'll send emails to folks with links and how to sign up for our new webinar. And as always, I'll send an email with this slide presentation and a link if you didn't get a chance to see or you missed something, you want to watch it again. Thank you all so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it, and have a great rest of your day.